The exercise files for today's course are located in the video description below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Hello and welcome to Excel Power User. You're learning with Mo Jones, IT professional and educator. For our Power User course, it's all about conditional functions. So we'll take a look at conditional functions that can summarize or aggregate data for us. We'll take a look at lookup functions, in particular the XLOOKUP function, which replaces VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, and index and match. We'll also take a look at text functions, very nice functions for cleaning up your data or even to improve your data set as well. We'll also take a look at advanced pivot tables. So what are some other tools that are available to us after inserting a pivot table, creating a pivot chart, and filtering our data as well? That's what we'll be covering in Module 1 of our course today. For Module 2, we have another set of objectives. We'll be taking a look at some useful array functions. We'll take a look at advanced conditional formatting. We can create our own conditional formatting based on formulas. We'll also take a look at advanced charts. And then we'll finish up by creating some macros by turning on the developer mode. So go ahead and open up the practice file for Module 1 and come right back and we'll dive in.
Looking to support our channel and get a great deal? Become a member today to unlock ad-free videos. That's right, your favorite courses without a single ad. Interested in a specific video? Purchase one of our ad-free courses individually. Looking for even more? Gain access to exams, certificates, and exclusive content at LearnitAnytime.com. More information can be found in the video description below.
I've opened up my Power User Module 1 file here, and let's go ahead and take a look at our very first worksheet. So in our very first worksheet, we'll be covering the if function, and the if function is basically the foundation for our logical functions. So in preparation for our database functions, we want to make sure that we understand the if function. So for our functions, we're going to be inserting the function. You can either type the function here in the cell. We can also type it in the formula bar if we want to, but we're going to be inserting it the traditional way from the Formulas tab and clicking on the Insert Function dialog here as well. We can also press Shift plus F3 to get that done. Now, in order to understand how this works, let's take a look at the if function in its most basic form. In this case, we have some sales figures for the month of February, a few sales representatives here. For example, for SSAM, we're tracking the weekly sales. Week 1, 95.50, week 2, 92.30, week 3, 8,500, and week 4, 89.65. So in the end, the totals for SSAM for the month of February is 36,245. So the question is, did SSAM meet the monthly goal? Well, the monthly goal is over here, which is 34,000. So if we were to compare the value in cell F5 and I12, we would say something like, well, is the value in F5 greater than or equal to the value that is in I12? So that's our logical test. Excel will compare the values in those two cells and give us either true or false. But in this case, if it's true, we just want to go ahead and say yes. So obviously, if we ask the question here, did SSAM meet the monthly goal? The answer is yes, because 36,245 is greater than or equal to 34,000. Let's go ahead and express that so that Excel can understand our logical test. I'll go ahead and click on cell H5, and I'm going to insert my function. So I'll choose H5 here. I'll go ahead and click on the Formulas tab. I'll go ahead and insert my function. You can also press Shift F3. I'll go ahead and type the if function at the top here. I'll press go, and then I'll press OK. Here's my function arguments dialog box. It tells us what the function is, what the function does, and for each argument, what it's actually asking us for. So we can see that this function needs three things. We need to introduce our logical test. Optionally, we can specify what should be displayed in the cell if the value is true or if it's false. Notice how these are not bold as the first argument. So these two are optional because by default, they're going to return either true or false. Well, let's go ahead and set this up. So our logical test, we're concerned about two cells. We're concerned about cell F5 that has SUM sale. We want to see if it's greater than or equal to the value that is in I12. Excel has already determined that the value here is greater than the value that's in here. Therefore, it's already telling us that it's true. But we don't want it to say true. So if it's true, we'll just simply say yes in quotes. If it's false, we'll simply say no. Here's our answer. It's already telling us it's going to be a yes. I'll go ahead and press OK. And we should be good to go. So there it is. We have our yes. Now, we want to be able to auto fill down. So if we grab our fill handle here, we can fill down and answer the rest of the questions here as well. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and absolute reference my monthly goal that is in cell I12. So to do that, I'm going to rewrite it this way. It's going to be F5 is it greater than or equal to $I $12. So this way, when we write our formula, the values in column F will move down row by row, but we're going to go ahead and lock on to the monthly goal. So I can just go back to my original formula here in the formula bar, or if I double click on the cell, I can see the formula. And I can go ahead and right here, I can just go ahead and press the F4 key on my keyboard, and that will absolute reference the I12 for me. So I'll press F4. There we go. And now I can just go ahead and press enter. I'm good to go. If I autofill down, now as we take a look, if I double click on that second cell, I can see it's moving down in column F, but it's still locking on to I12. If I double click on the next one here, moving down as expected in column F, but we're still locking on to I12. So go ahead and write your if function for column H. Answer the question, was the goal met? You should get 3 no's and 3 cells with yes, and come right back. Now that we've answered the question, was the goal met for each of our sales reps? Let's move on to column I. We're going to go ahead and calculate the bonus if our sales rep met the monthly goal. So we do have a bonus opportunity here of 6% of the sales if the goal was met. So in this case, SUM did meet the goal. So what we're going to do is run the calculation. We're going to multiply the value that is in cell F5 times 6%. So we're simply going to say, if the value is true, we'll say F5 times the value that is in I13. We can use the same statement as before. So for example, we can use our same conditional test here. If the value in F5 is greater than or equal to I12, instead of saying yes though, this is where we're going to perform our calculation. So instead of saying yes, we're going to perform our calculation. We'll say F5 times the value that is in I13. So that's the only change that we need to make here as well. So let's go ahead and set this up. I'll go ahead and click on cell I5. I'll go ahead and insert my if function again. It's already up here, so I'll just go ahead and press OK. Again, I can use the same test. I could have even copied the formula here as well, but I'll go ahead and write this over. So F5 is greater than or equal to the value that is in I12. Since I'm right here, I want to go ahead and highlight the I12 and press the F4 key on my keyboard. That will absolute reference it for me. Now the value, if it's true, remember we want to perform a calculation. So I'll multiply the value in F5 times the value that is in I13. I am going to absolute reference I13 because I want to be able to fill down my formula. So I'll press the F4 key on my keyboard again. And there we go. We can see it's already giving us the calculation because this scenario is true. It's already performed the calculation for us. So we should be getting a 2175 bonus for SSAM. If it's false, I'll just say something like NA in quotes, and we're good to go. So just to recap, our logical test is the same as before. Is the value in cell F5 greater than or equal to the value that is in I12? So in this case, because it's true, we're performing the calculation. I'll go ahead and press OK. And now I can go ahead and auto fill down. Because I have values to the left, I can double click on the fill handle here and it will copy it down for me. So there you go. I'm good to go with my if function here. So the if function, we can either say true or false. We can have our custom text, or we can perform a calculation as well. Now this is dynamic. So if I were to give Sandberg the extra $1 here to meet the monthly goal, I'll go ahead and change the value here. And notice how this will change to yes. And we'll also get the bonus status updated right here as well. So because we're using the cell reference, everything is dynamic. So now all we need to do is just input values here, or actually over here. So for each month, as these cells are populated, these two columns will be updated automatically as well. I'll give Sandberg the extra $1, so 34,000. I'll press enter, and there we go. Right. Go ahead and write your second if function to calculate the bonus status and come right back. Let's go ahead and write one more function to complete this worksheet here. So we have one more opportunity here in cell K5. So even though you did not meet the monthly goal, we still have an opportunity for a department bonus of 1K. So everyone gets 1K, but it's based on two conditions. So the first condition is that the total sales needs to be greater than or equal to 200,000. And then the average sales here needs to be greater than or equal to 40,000. So we can see that one is true. So we're already at 213. So this is true. However, this is false. So we need to go ahead and write a function to determine whether both conditions are true. The keyword here is and. There's actually two ways we can do this. We can either write a single and function. The and function will just give us the default true or false. If we want to go ahead and write a custom message, however, such as, great job team or keep trying, we would need to nest the and function inside of our if function. Well, let's go ahead and write our and function first, and then we'll just go ahead and nest that in our if function. So we're using the and function because the if function only allows for one logical test. So if I open up my if statement here, I can see it only allows for one logical test. But what about the and function? I'll click on the insert function here. I'll go ahead and insert my and function. I'll press go and I'll press OK. So here's my and function. And as you can see, it provides opportunities for more than one logical test. We can actually go up to 255 logical tests as well. Well, let's go ahead and enter this. So our first logical test we're concerned about the value that is in cell F12. Is that greater than or equal to the value that is in L12? So 213,000 is greater than or equal to 200,000. So this first part is true. Now logical test 2, I'll go ahead and click here, is concerned with the average sales. So is that greater than or equal to the value that is in cell L14? So we can see that that is not the case. 35,602 is not greater than or equal to 40,000. So we end up having one that's true and one that's false. Now the AND function both need to be true. So because one is false, we end up with false here as well. So if I press OK, this gives me a simple answer, letting me know that, well, it's false, right? We're not going to get that department bonus of 1K. But what if we wanted to write something custom in here, such as, maybe if the department gets a bonus, we could say something like great job team, or we can just say something like keep trying as a department. Well, to do that, we would need to nest the if function. So look what I'm going to do. I already have my AND function here that's giving me the result. So I'll just go ahead and copy my AND function. So I'll copy that to the clipboard. I'll press escape to get away from my formula bar here. And maybe over here, create a little space for my function. So I'm going to insert the if function. Okay. So my if function is only concerned with either a true or false value. Well, remember my AND function that I just wrote is giving me either true or false. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste the AND function in here. Right? So my logical test is the result of my AND function. And we can see that it's giving me false. So mission accomplished. So now, if it's true, I can say great job team. And if it's false, then we can say keep trying. As you can see in this case, our AND function is returning false for us because both conditions are not met. So therefore, the result will be to keep trying. Now, one of the cool things here, now that we have the function arguments box open to simplify things, what I can do, take a look at the formula bar, is I can go back and forth between the if function arguments box and the AND function arguments box. So if I click on the AND function here, notice how it's switched over to my AND function. So this is just a little tip, helps us when we're nesting functions here. Now I can toggle back and forth between if and AND. I'm good to go. I'll go ahead and press OK. There is my answer. Now remember, all of this is dynamically linked. So if these values were to change, once we get to 40,000 average sales or more, our message here will be updated as well. Go ahead and write your AND function and go ahead and nest your AND function inside of your if function as well, and come right back. On this worksheet, let's take a look at several variations of the if function. In particular, COUNTIF, SUMIF, AVERAGEIF, and SUMIFS. Let's take a look at our expense report. We have some expenses from rows 6 down to row 50. If I scroll down, it goes down to row 50 here. So we have the date of the expense. We have the office, either uptown, midtown, or downtown. We also have the actual expense. So technical support, communication, office supplies, and transportation, and so forth. We're also tracking the amount. So for example, on July 1st, we had our first expense. It was for the uptown office for technical support, in the amount of $747. The first thing we want to do is we want to go ahead and highlight all of our tech supports here as well. So how many expenses did we have for tech support? Well, here's one. And if we go down here, here's 2. And here's 3. And so forth and so on. So what we're actually doing is we're taking this input value here. So we want to count how many expenses did we have for tech support. We're taking this value and we're searching the expense range, and we're counting how many times tech support actually appears in there. So if you think about it, what we're doing is we need a range, we need a criteria, and that's it. We already have that information. So the range that we want to search, well, that range is from C6 down to C50. And our criteria, well, our criteria, we can either type technical support in there, or we can refer to cell G10. We want to use the cell reference because if we change tech support to another expense, we can get a real-time update in terms of how many times that expense was logged as well. But the first thing we want to do, let's go ahead and name our ranges. So instead of highlighting, C6 all the way down to C50 every time we want to run some type of function on here, let's go ahead and name the range. I'm going to go ahead and highlight the entire range, and right up here in the name box, I'm going to go ahead and give this a name. So for the office expense range, I'll call this expense or expenses. So notice I've highlighted the entire range in question, and I'm typing the name of the range right here in the name box. Well, I'll go ahead and press enter. And now I have a range. I'll put the name right here so I can remember what it is. I call that range expenses. I'm going to do the same thing here. Well, now what I can do, I'll go ahead and click on the drop down, and I can see I have some ranges in here. Notice we have some table ranges. We'll take a look at this in just a little bit. If I click on that expenses range, notice how it highlights this range for me. So from now on, when I refer to expenses, it's going to refer to C6 down to C50. Well, we'll see how this will help. For example, if I want to go ahead and summarize and maybe count amount of expenses in that range, well, now I can come in here and I can use the COUNTIF function. So I can insert my COUNTIF function. And as I mentioned before, it's going to ask you for the range and for the criteria. Well, for the range, I'm just going to type expenses in here. And notice how it's giving us a preview of the actual range. So tech support, communication, office supplies. My criteria, I can either type technical support in here in quotes, and it tells me that there were 6 entries for tech support. But I want to use the cell reference instead. So I'll go ahead and refer to cell G10. So I'll go ahead and just click on cell G10 in here. So whatever value, let me delete that. There you go. So my range is now expenses, aka C6 through C50. My criteria is tech support, aka cell G10. If I press OK, I'm notified right away that I have 6 expenses for tech support. Now I can change this to kind of give it a test. Maybe I'll go ahead and check to see how many times did we have meal expenses logged. So I'll type meal in here and I'll press enter. And we had 7. So that is what the COUNTIF function does. But combining that with naming the ranges helps us to work more efficiently. Go ahead and name the office range. So B6 to B50. Go ahead and name the expenses range, C6 to C50. And go ahead and name the amount range, which will be D6 to D50. Go ahead and enter your COUNTIF function, give it a test, and come right back. Let's go ahead and answer our next question here. So what were the total expenses for office supplies? So in order to answer this question, we need to find all of our entries here for office supplies. Go ahead and locate the amount in the amount column and add that to the running total. So if we were to do this consistently, we would actually get our answer, right? So at least in my view right now, here are at least the very first 3 entries for office supplies. We add these numbers together, and that is what the SUMIF function will do. So let's take a look at the SUMIF function. Now, we already know we're going to be asked for the range and the criteria. We already have the information that we need. I'll go ahead and click on this cell for age 14, and I will go ahead and insert the SUMIF function. So here's SUMIF. And again, what's the range? Well, the range is going to be my expenses. So I'll type expenses in here. What's my criteria? Well, it's office supplies, but I want to use the cell reference here, which is G14. And then the third one, what is the range that I want to summarize? Well, I want to summarize the match that's found in the amount column. I did name that as amount. So I'll go ahead and type amount in here. And there we go. It's already giving us our answer. The total for office supplies is $3,902. Right. I'll go ahead and press OK. And there we go. All right. Just need to go ahead and give this the accounting or currency format. I'll give this currency and press OK. And there's our number format in here as well. So this works well because I already have my ranges named. So here's my amount range. I can see all of my numbers under the amount column are selected, my expenses, and then my office as well. Now we can repeat the same thing. In order for us to calculate the average cost per meal, it's going to be the same thing. The expense range, our criteria is meal, and we want to run the numbers on the amount column. So I'll go ahead and this time I'll insert the AVERAGEIF function. This will give me the average per meal expense. So I'll search for AVERAGEIF. I'll press go and I'll press OK. So same thing, range, expense, meal. So range is going to be expenses again. My criteria are the meals. So I'll click here. And the range that I want to run the numbers on, well, the only range is the amount range. So I'll type amount. And there you go. So the average meal expense is $590.14. So I'll go ahead and press OK. Again, I'll give this the currency format. I'll just use the format painter this time, and there we go. So 3 down, 1 to go. But as we can see, it's always asking us for the same thing. What is the range? What is the criteria? And what is the column of interest that you want to run your numbers on? The function takes care of everything for us in the background. A lot of calculations that we cannot see, that we're not privy to. All we're asked to do is just point to the different range and what is the criteria as well. Now what I can do, because we're using the cell reference, what is the average expense for, let's say, office supplies? So I can type office supplies in here, and it gives me the answer right away. So $650 and $33. Go ahead and write your SUMIF and AVERAGEIF. Go ahead and change the values and get some real-time updates here as well. It's a really nice way to get some insight on a data set. come right back. For our last example here, we have a unique situation. So in this case, we want to summarize what are the total for the meal expense in the Midtown office. So now we have two ranges, office and expense, and we have two criteria. The office needs to be Midtown and the expense needs to be meal. Now the SUMIF only allows room for one criteria and range. So we need to use another function that will allow us to have multiple ranges and multiple criteria. And that is SUMIFS. I'll go ahead and click on cell G23 and I'll click on the Formulas tab. And let's go ahead and insert our SUMIFS function here. I'll press go. And I'll go ahead and press OK. There's also an average ifs that allows us to do the same thing. In this case, the very first thing it wants, our function arguments here, it wants us to specify the sum range. Now remember, our sum range is going to be the amount column. So let's go ahead and type amount in here. So I'll type amount. There we go. Here's a preview of the amount array, 747, 907, 540. And now we can enter criteria range 1. So criteria range 1 is the office and the criteria is Midtown. So criteria range 1, we need to search the office column here. So I'll type office in here. I know it's locked on to the right range. Here's the preview of the range. Criteria 1 is going to be Midtown. So far we're summarizing the amount column where the office is Midtown. Now we have criteria range 2. So I'll click on criteria range 2. In this case, the expense column needs to return the meal expense. So I'll type expenses in here. And the criteria 2 needs to be meal. So I'll click on meal. And there you go. So basically we're summarizing the amount column. The office needs to be Midtown and the expense needs to be meal. Here's our answer, 3310. I'll go ahead and press OK. And let's just give it a quick test. We can change the office and the expense and let's see what we get here. I'll also apply the accounting format or the currency format rather to here and we're good to go. So now we've created a really nice dynamic worksheet. And it's very typical. Sometimes this worksheet will live on another worksheet tab while the data is being entered in here as well. So again, this is dynamically linked to this data set. So any changes to our data set here is going to update our little worksheet over here as well. Well, I'll do one more thing here. I'm going to go ahead and change this. Let's change this for what are the total expenses for, let's say, communication in the Uptown office. So I'll change this to Uptown. And change this to communication. And there we go. So all matches for Uptown communication, we have 2,545. So those are our database functions. Let's head on over to our XLOOKUP worksheet tab. XLOOKUP is a really nice function. Basically, it allows us to do several things. One of the things it allows us to do is to return a value from a database or return different parts of a record from a database. Let's see how this works. We have a kiosk here and we're basically inputting the employee ID number. Now, after we input the employee ID number, Excel is going to head on over to the employee ID column here, and it's going to find that employee ID number. Once it finds that employee ID number in that column, we can return the last name, first name, department, and the hire date and they will all be displayed in our kiosk right here. So this way, if someone asks you, what is the hire date for employee with the number 1054? We don't even have to see this database. We don't have to come and scroll through it to look for that employee ID. We simply just need to set up our XLOOKUP so that it does the work for us. If I change this to 1368, we can see that 1368 is down here. This is the record for Tammy Wu. And as expected, it's returning the last name, first name, department, and the hire date as well. This is a really nice way as well to just automatically populate maybe a form with using XLOOKUP. So based on the value that you input in one cell, it's going to return the corresponding field for you here as well. So that is basically how XLOOKUP works. If you've used other functions like index and match or VLOOKUP, you know that they have prerequisites. With XLOOKUP, we don't really have any prerequisites here as well. Let's go ahead and enter our XLOOKUP. I'll go ahead and delete my formulas in here. Let's go ahead and enter our XLOOKUP. Let's return the last name first. So I'll click on cell B4, click on my formulas tab. Here's my insert function. I'll go ahead and look for XLOOKUP. I'll press go. Here's XLOOKUP. I'll go ahead and press OK. So now with XLOOKUP, again, the function will do the work for us. We just need to point to the different places. So it's asking us for the lookup value. Well, lookup value is what gets everything started. It's going to be whatever is currently in cell A4. The next thing it's asking us for is the lookup array. The lookup array is basically where can we find those employee ID numbers. So it's going to be in column G, right? Starting with G10 down to about row 46. The next thing it's asking us for is what is the return array? Well, the return array is what you want to return. So remember, we want to return the last name. That can be found in that first column. So it's going to be A10 down through the last row, which I believe is 46. So basically, if we were to plug this in manually, it would look something like this, right? So our lookup value is going to be A4. And then our lookup array is going to be basically where can we find those employee ID numbers that we're placing in cell A4. It's going to be G10 down to G46. We have 46 rows of data. Well, we'll go down to row 46. And then the return array, we want to return the last name, which begins A10 down through A46. As soon as we plug in the information here, it's going to give us our result. So it should give us the appropriate last name based on the employee ID number. So let's go ahead and plug these in. So our lookup value is going to be our input cell, which is A4. Already confirms that 1368 is in that cell for us. For the lookup array, well, I can find those employee IDs in from G10 down to G46. So there we go. Here's the array. Which array do I want to return, or range? I want to return from the last name. I don't feel like scrolling through. I'll click on the first last name and I'll press Control Shift down. Highlights all of them for me. And there we go. Lookup value is A4. We can find them in G10 through G46. The returning column is A10 through A46. We have Wu for Tammy. I'll go ahead and press OK. And there we go. So that is how XLOOKUP works. And as you can see, much more efficient than the other lookup functions that we can use. I'm going to go ahead and change the employee ID to 1054, and I'll press enter. and I am good to go. Right. Now, there's some other things that we could have done. We could have named, right? We could have named the employee ID range if we want to. And then we could actually name these ranges here as well. Last name, first name, department, and hire date. So that we could do that. The other thing that we can do is we can just modify our original XLOOKUP here. And we can lock on to cell A4. So in the formula bar, I'll go into absolute reference A4. So I'll press the F4 key on my keyboard. We're also going to absolute reference the employee IDs. So G10 through G46. So I'll press F4, absolute reference those as well. So now we're locking on to the employee ID in cell A4. We'll also lock on to the employee ID range over here as well. So now what we can do, we can autofill over and just change the return range. I'll go ahead and press enter here. And let's see if I autofill over to the right. So we can see it's giving us the last name. Here's the first name. It's moving over. The department, that's fine. And for the hire date, this is incorrect. We just need to go ahead and change the return so that we're returning the values in column H and not column D. So right here, I can just say H10 through H46. And if I press enter, we get the hire date. It's giving us the serial number for the hire date. So I'll just go ahead and change this to the date format. I'll use a short date here. And there we go. So there is our XLOOKUP. Input a value. Excel will find the values in a database for you and return fields from that record here as well. Go ahead and enter your XLOOKUP to complete our kiosk. Go ahead and give it a quick test. I'll put 1075 in here. And here's our record for Cheryl Kane. Let's take a look at a really nice example of how we can use XLOOKUP here. So it's very common in the data world to have different data sets. So if you take a look on this worksheet for joining lists, we have a few data sets here. We actually have a table over here. So here's our products table. We have several products. The Aspen product is $21. We also have a region table. So the region table, we have our sales rep. For example, Alan Ramos is from the Midwest region. And then we also have an order form over here as well. So here's our order form. We have the date of the transaction. We have the sales rep from our region table. We have the product from our product table. But we're missing something. We don't have the price here. And we need to go ahead and calculate the sale. And if we want to run a pivot table analysis on this data, it would make sense for us to maybe insert a region column so that we can run some regional reports as well. So that's what we'll do. I'm going to go ahead and insert a column first to the left here, right after the sales rep. So I'll go ahead and insert a column, and I'll call this column region. So now we can run pivot table analysis based on the date, sales rep, region, product, and the sale as well. Well, let's go ahead and return the region based on the sales rep. So let's use Austin Reynolds as an example here. If I said, let's go ahead and return the region for Austin Reynolds, well, you'll take Austin Reynolds here as our input. You're going to go down the region table here for our sales rep. And once you find Austin Reynolds, you'll say, oh, well, Austin Reynolds is from the East. So you'll go ahead and put East in here for Austin Reynolds. but we don't want to do that manually. And that's exactly what XLOOKUP is going to do for us here on this worksheet. This is 10,000 rows of data. So if I press Control End, we can see it goes down to row 10,003. So let's see if XLOOKUP is going to do a good job for us. I'll press Control Home to go back to cell A1. Let's go ahead and return the region based on our sales rep. Same thing, lookup value, lookup array, and the return array. So in this case, I'll actually plug it in to kind of help us here. So our lookup value in this case is going to be Edwin Malone. Okay, so AKA cell H4. So I'll click on cell H4 for my lookup value. As far as my lookup array, where can I find my sales reps? Well, they're going to be in column D. So it goes down to row 75, right? So it's going to be D4 to D75. So this will be D4 through D75. And then what do I want to return? Well, I want to return the region, which is going to be E4 to E75. So I already have all of my inputs here that I actually need. And now I just need to go ahead and plug them into my XLOOKUP and allow XLOOKUP to do its work for me. I'll go ahead and make this orange. Let's go ahead and return the region based on our sales rep. I'll click here on cell I4 and I'm going to insert my XLOOKUP function. My lookup value, Edwin Malone in cell H4. So I'll click here and I can confirm it's recognizing that Edwin Malone is in here. Now it's giving us the table name for that cell because we're working with tables now. For the lookup array, well, we can find those here in cell D4 to D75. So I'll go ahead and highlight all of those. And it also gives me the table name here as well, right? So table 2, sales rep column. So it's converting it for me automatically. We can also type that in if we want to. So what do we want to return? We want to return the region column from table 2. So I can actually type it here. So I can say table 2, and in brackets, I'll type the name of the column, which is region, and close my brackets. So that's one of the benefits of working with a table. It automatically names the ranges for you as far as the column. Well, here we go. According to XLOOKUP, Edwin Malone is from the East region. Right. I'll go ahead and press OK. Now, because this is a table, when you enter a formula in the top row here, it's automatically going to fill down the formula for us. So that's a major benefit here. So let's press OK and let's see what happens. So look at that. We can see that we have all of the regions based on our sales rep. Well, let's do a quick test. Here's Bernadette Page. Is Bernadette Page from the Midwest region? Well, let's find Bernadette. Here's Bernadette. Yes. So we can see our XLOOKUP is working perfectly fine here. And if we go to the end of the data set, I'll press Control End. We can see it's inserted the region for all of our orders here as well. So we're good to go. Let's go ahead and do the same thing here for the price. Right. So in this case, here is our lookup value. It's going to be the Carlotta product. The lookup array is the products. The return array is the price. So we already have the information we need. Let's go ahead and plug that in here. So XLOOKUP one more time. Lookup value, first product on the top row. Lookup array, all of my products from my products table. The return array, my prices from the product table. And there we go. It's already giving us our price, which is $22.95. And if we locate the Carlotta product, we can see that that is indeed $22.95. So XLOOKUP is taking care of that for us. Let's go ahead and press OK. And just like with our region, adds the prices for all of our products here as well. So we're good to go. Last thing we need to do is just to calculate the sale. So we'll just do a simple calculation. We'll multiply the units times the price and to get our sale here. So I'll click on cell M4. I'll say equal, and I'll click on the units here and multiply that times the price. Press enter, and there we go. We have all of our sales. So that's a real world use of XLOOKUP. Go ahead and insert the region column. Go ahead and populate the region column. Go ahead and populate the price column, and go ahead and calculate the sale and come right back. Let's go ahead and convert our order form into a pivot table, and let's go ahead and analyze the data. So because we're working with a table, we can actually click on the Table Design tab, and we can use the command to summarize this with a pivot table. So I'll go ahead and click here. And I can actually place this on an existing sheet. I do have a sheet here called Advanced Pivot Table. It's empty right now. So I'll go ahead and place this there. So I'll click on here. I'll head on over to Advanced Pivot Table, and I'll go ahead and place it over here in cell A2, and I'll press OK. So here is my pivot table. Now that I have my pivot table up and running, I can go ahead and build up my pivot table. Now this is the default view for the pivot table. So it's stacked. We have our fields up here on the top, and we have our area boxes on the bottom. I like to click on the little gear icon here and just change the view, and also sort my fields in alphabetical order as well. So I'll click on the gear icon, and I'll go ahead and choose side by side. I'll also go ahead and sort A to Z. Just a matter of preference. So there's side by side. And now I'll go ahead and sort my fields A to Z. I'm going to build out my table here. I'm going to go ahead and drag the sale into the values box. And right here, I get my sum of sale. So I have my sum of sale in here. So by default, it wants to summarize the values that I place in this box here. Now I don't have order IDs in here. So what if I wanted to not get the sum of all of our sales, which is perfectly fine, but what if I want maybe the count of the sales, right? So how many transactions did we actually have? So to do that, we're going to display the value in a different way. Instead of using the sum, we're going to use the count instead. So to do that, I'll go ahead and pull up my value field settings. I can click on the drop down here in the actual area box. Here is my value field settings. I can also right click on the number here, and I can also get to value field settings here as well. So either way, I can come in here and get that information. I'll click on the drop down value field settings. So notice right now we're summarizing the value field by the sum. If I change this to the count, right, and now I can also change the custom name that appears here as well. So I want to know how many transactions did we have, and I'll change the name here as well. And I'll just call this one transactions. I'll go ahead and press OK. Well, before I do that, I want to get rid of the decimals. So I'll click on the number format here on the bottom left. And I don't want any decimals. I'll go ahead and press OK. And if I press OK again, this tells me that I have 10,000 transactions, which is correct because we had 10,000 transactions on the original data set. So now that I have 10,000 transactions, now I can get some information such as how many transactions per region. So we can see that we had most of our transactions in the Midwest region, 3,603, and we had fewer transactions in the South as well, right? And of course, if I want to go ahead and move things around a little bit, maybe I want based on region and product. Now I can go ahead and be a little more precise. We had 125 transactions of the Aspen product in the East region here as well. So go ahead and insert your pivot table. Go ahead and add the sale to the values. Change it to summarize by the count function and create a couple of visuals and come right back. Let's go ahead and reset our table and let's take a look at the calculated fields advanced option. So we want to create a calculated field and we'll see why. Let's go ahead and reset our table. Just going to go ahead and put the sale back in here and I'll just switch over to the accounting format. So now we have the sum of sale. Well, I want the sum of sale by sales rep. So here are all my sales reps and we can see all of their sales here as well. Now what I would like to do is calculate the commission. So let's say we're giving a 10% commission based on sales. Now I don't have a field over here that's called commission. So how can I calculate the commission? Well, one thing that you can do just temporarily is you can create an outside formula. So if I say, commission here, I can go ahead and enter a simple equation. So I'll say equal the sum of sale times 10%. I could even use the cell reference if I want to. If I press OK, here's the commission for Alan Ramos. And now I can go ahead and autofill down. And this shows me all of my commissions for all of my sales reps. So that's one way that I can do that. But this is temporary. And the reason I say this is temporary is because as our pivot table expands, it's going to overwrite any data that's over here, right? So if I just let's say if I put my region into the columns, it basically wipes that data out, right? And notice that these cells are no longer just the overall values. So it's kind of a temporary solution. So what can we do here instead? I'm going to remove the region. The other option is to go back to the original data set. So if I go back to joining lists, what I can do is insert another header over here that's called commission. And this will calculate the commission based on the current sale. Then I would need to just go ahead and make sure all of my formulas are added here as well. Then I would need to go back to my pivot table, refresh the pivot table so that we can display the field for that new header. Well, we don't need to do that. We don't need to create an outside formula. We don't need to even add a field to the original data set. What we're going to do is create a calculated field. To do that, I'll click on Pivot Table Analyze. And over in the Calculations command group, we have Fields, Items, and Sets. If I click on this drop-down, I'll see an option to create a calculated field. I'll go ahead and click here. So there we go. Right. So I'll go ahead and click on Calculated Field. Here's my Insert Calculated Field dialog box. I need to do two things. I need to first go ahead and name it and then enter my formula. Once I'm done, I can go ahead and add this to my field list here. And we'll see how cool that is. We can add a field here and use that at different places in our pivot table. And then I can go ahead and press OK. And this will display the field in column C for me and display all of the values here as well. So I'll go ahead and call this commission. Now, as far as the formula, we can use simple functions in here. We cannot use anything too complex. If you're looking for more advanced features, go ahead and click on the question mark here. This will open up a Microsoft article that will show you just some of the limitations in terms of what we can do. But the purpose here is just to show you how a calculated field works. So for my formula, I'll delete that 0. So we can run calculations on columns. So in this case, I'm concerned about the sale. So I'll go ahead and insert the sale field here. So it's going to be the sale times 10%. And that's it. So it's called commission. The formula is equal to the current sale times 10%. I'll go ahead and click add. And notice when I clicked on add, I now have a new field that's called commission. I'll go ahead and press OK. And now we have a field here. It's sum of commission, and it's giving me all the commission for all of my sales reps. If I go to the bottom, here's the grand total of all commission. And that's correct because 10% of 915,000 is basically 91,500. So that is how we add a calculated field. Now, if you want to change that, let's say the commission rate changes to 11%. This is the benefit of using the calculated field. I simply need to go back to Pivot Table Analyze, and I can click on Calculated Field here. I'll click on the drop down here, locate the calculated field that I want to modify, and I'll just change this to 11%. I'll click on Modify. I'll click OK. And you can notice in real time, all of my values have been updated here. So 11% of 54.97 yields 604.67. So that's a really nice way to create another field that you can reuse in our pivot table. Now here's the benefit of it. What if I wanted to go ahead and calculate the commission based on region? Well, I'll go ahead and let's see. I'll go ahead and add, I'll remove my sales rep here. So as you can see now, here's the total commission. If I want commission based on region, here are the commissions that are paid out based on region. So just like with our fields, we can reuse them at different places in our pivot table. Go ahead and create a calculated field of your choice and come right back. Now, when you're working with your pivot table, we naturally want to be able to filter our pivot table to display the values that we're looking for. Now, if I click on the Pivot Table Analyze tab, we have some more advanced filtering. So remember, we do have the row and column label filters that we can interact with. We also have our filter box over here as well. But we're going to take a look at two types of filters. One is the slicer and one is the timeline. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the commission here. I just want to focus on the sale based on region and also based on product. So I'll move the region to the columns here, and I'll put the product into the rows. So here's our simplified condensed table showing all of our transactions by region and product as well. So here are my row label filters. I can filter by product. Here's my column label filters. I can filter by region. Well, I want to insert a slicer for that. So on Pivot Table Analyze, let's first insert our slicer and let's see how our slicer behaves. I'll click here. Notice we have a slicer for each of our fields here. We don't have one for commission though because it's a calculated field. I want to go ahead and insert a slicer for the product and one also for the region. I'll go ahead and press OK. Here are my two slicers. I'm going to go ahead and move them around. I can resize them. I have quite a few products, so this slicer is a little longer. So I can actually display this slicer in two columns. But before we do that, let's see what our slicer can do. So if I'm presenting this data and I'm asked about a particular product, if I just click here, let's say on the sunset product, notice how it filters my pivot table. It's only displaying the values in each region for my sunset product. Pretty cool. Well, what if I want to focus on the sunset and the Aspen product? If I hold down the control key and click on Aspen, now I'm showing only for the Aspen and sunset product. So notice how all of these numbers, all 15 of these cells have been recalculated based on that filter. Right? I can take it a step further. What about the Aspen and sunset in the East region? And there we go. So that's what our slicers are for. Again, you can select multiple by holding down the control key and clicking, because by default, you can only choose one value at a time. There's another way that we can select multiple. If we take a look at the top right of our slicers, we'll see a little tool here. This is the multi-select tool. This changes the mode so that we can select multiple items. I'm going to go ahead and clear my filters. So I'll clear my slicers here to make sure everything is selected. I'll click on that clear filter icon. Everything is reset. I'm going to turn on the multi-select tool for both of my slicers. And now I can select multiple, or in this case, unselect what I don't want. So because everything is selected, I can pretty much unselect what I don't want. So if I just want Aspen, doublers, and the sunshine, I can go ahead and do that. Right. For my regions, if I just want the East and the South regions, there we go. So our slicers allow us to filter our data that's being displayed on our table. Now, for our slicers, I'll go ahead and reset them again. Or because it's a filter, we have the clear filter option here. Now, our slicers comes with its own contextual tab. So if I click here, I can see slicer appear at the end of my ribbon. And I can do things like change the name of the slicer. I can choose a slicer style. I can even choose how many columns I want. Because my product slicer has a really long one column here, I'd prefer to have maybe 2 columns. Right? This way it doesn't have to be that long. So I'll go ahead and change this to 2 columns instead of 1. Let's see if that looks better. There we go. So there's 2 columns. Now it's not as tall. I just need to make it a little wider. So this gives me a little more control. Now I can stack them like this. I'm good to go. We can change the colors. And there we go. So those are the slicers. Right. So if you click here, we can change the name of the slicer. Here are the different slicer settings that we can interact with. Again, just some basic information here. By default, it's sorted A to Z. Here's the caption. Here's the name. Right. If you do have blank values that's showing up, you can always choose this option that says hide items with no data. This way you will not see a blank button on your slicer as well. Okay. So that's it for slicers. Go ahead and insert a few slicers. Go ahead and play around with them. Click on the buttons and check out how your pivot table is being updated. To delete a slicer, just click on it, press the delete key. Now we're good to go. Let's take a look at the timeline. I'm going to move my slicer down here to the bottom left, and let's go ahead and insert a timeline. So I'll click back on the Pivot Table Analyze tab here, and here is my timeline right next to my slicer. I'll go ahead and insert that. Now the timeline is a very powerful tool because a lot of our data is based on time, such as quarterly reports or monthly reports or yearly reports. A timeline takes a lot of the guesswork out for us, and it's a very efficient tool. It's a very simple tool as well, so we'll take a look at it here. I'll go ahead and click on Insert Timeline, and notice the Timeline tool looks for a properly formatted date field. So make sure that you have a properly formatted date field, otherwise you will not be able to use the timeline. I'll go ahead and click here and I'll press OK. here is our timeline. Right. Now the way our timeline works, I'm going to change the color just so we can have some contrast here. Just like with our slicer, we have a timeline tab here. We can do things like rename it, and we can go ahead and change the color. I'll just make it orange. Right. So here is our timeline. The way the timeline works is we have a hierarchy. So we have years, we have quarters, we have months, and we also have days. To the top right of our timeline, we need to first decide, how do we want to view our data? Do we want to view it by month, year, or by quarter? Let's start at the highest level. I'll go to years here. So as you can see, we have years, quarters, months, and days. If I click on years, so it looks like I have transactions covering 2019, 2020, and 2021. So if I click here, it's a little time capsule. If I click on 2019, we can see we had, looks like maybe just one transaction. So we had sales in 2019 of $79.80. Well, what about 2020? Here we go. That looks better. So in 2020, so all this information here that's being displayed, this is based on the information for the year 2020. Well, if someone says, well, what about 2021? Did we do better? Did we improve from 2020? And we can say, yes, we increased sales by $15,000 from $450 to $465. So that is pretty cool. So no need for us to write a lot of functions and formulas. The timeline is giving us this detail here. Let's go ahead and change that. I'll go to the quarters here. So I'll click on quarters. And we have several quarters here now because we have 3 different years of transactions. So now I need to go ahead and click on my timeline and just kind of make it wider so I can see the quarters for my different years here as well. Right. So here's 2019. Looks like we only had 1 quarter for 2019. Let's see. Yeah, so for 2019, quarter 4, $79.80. How did we do for quarter 1 in 2020? Quarter 1 in 2020, sales of $41,615. Now I can also do this. What about the first half of 2021? I can grab my little time capsule and I can drag it to the right. And now I'm showing quarter 1 and quarter 2, aka first half of 2020. And all of my numbers are updated right away. What about quarter 1 for 2021? Here are all of my numbers. So that is a pretty nice tool to be able to use here. The first half of 2021, sales of $69,360. Finally, we'll take a look at months. We can drop down to days as well. That's a little granular. I'll just go down to months. So here are my different months. Again, you may need to just readjust your timeline so that you can see all of the data. I'll just focus on 2021 here. So in January of 2021, here are our sales. In February, March, April, so forth and so on. So that is a really nice tool to get some real-time data on your data set by using the timeline. I'll drop back down to the years here. I'll go ahead and make this a little smaller so I can see. I'll go ahead and choose 2020 as my target. So that is the timeline. Highly recommend you use that, especially if you're analyzing your pivot table based on time-based information, or if you're presenting your pivot table as well. Let's take a look at report page filters. I'm going to go ahead and remove my slicer here. Just make sure it's reset. I'll go ahead and remove that. I'll go ahead and clear the filter from my timeline here as well. Then I'll go ahead and remove my timeline. And let's go ahead and take a look at what's called report page filters. Right? So we'll take a look at that. It's another type of filter that we can use. So what I'll do now is let's go ahead and focus on our regions. So what if I wanted to do something like get a separate pivot table for the East region? that I can manage independently. Right? So build me another pivot table for the East. Also build another pivot table for the Midwest, one for the South, and also one for the West. Right? And by the way, go ahead and put them on their own worksheet tab so I can kind of just analyze them independently. They're still connected to the original data source, but not necessarily to this pivot table here as well. So those are called report page filters. So how can we get Excel to insert 4 worksheets here with a pivot table on each of the worksheets for each of our regions? Well, let's take a look. The first thing we need to do is we need to introduce our region into the filters. So here's our filters box over here. We need to go ahead and introduce our region. So if I wanted to have different worksheets based on product, I can do that, or sales rep. But right now, regions, I only have 4, so it's a perfect candidate. I don't necessarily want 75 worksheet tabs for my sales reps. So I'll go ahead and drag the region in here, and then I'll run the report page filter. Now, before I do that, let's see where we can insert a report page filter. I'll click on the Pivot Table Analyze tab. And all the way over on the left, under the Pivot Table command group, if I click on the drop down, here is the Show Report Filter Pages. You can see that it's grayed out. And the reason it's grayed out is because we are missing a filter field here in this box. So as soon as we drag our region in here, we'll notice that this will become active, and we can go ahead and run the report, and it's going to do exactly what we want it to do. So let's go ahead and drag the region into the filters here. Now we clearly have the region in the filters. I'll go back and I'll click on Show Report Filter Pages. And let's see what happens. I'll click here, and notice it's asking us to show report filter pages of anything that we have in the filters box. So I'll go ahead and press OK. And I'll scroll over a little bit here so that we can see it a little better. We can see that Excel inserted a worksheet for the East. So here's a pivot table for the East region. We have one for the Midwest, one for the South, and one for the West as well. So these tables, they are behaving autonomously. They're behaving independently. They're not connected to my other pivot table. They are connected to the original data set, but no longer connected to this pivot table here as well. So for example, here in the East, I can rebuild this table to the way that I want it to be, right? So maybe I'll go ahead and put the product in the columns. I'll put the sales rep into the rows, right? And now we can have our detail here. So this is all for the East region. If I go back to my original pivot table, I can see that it's not implementing those custom changes here as well. So why would you want to do that? Well, maybe you just want to go ahead and analyze data for the Midwest region without, moving things around in the original pivot table. So this is kind of like a drill down or drill through report that you can use as well. So that is how we can insert the report filter page. To finish up our practice file here, we'll take a look at the very last worksheet, which is text functions. Now, actually, what we're going to be using is a function. It's my favorite tool. It's actually a tool, but it operates like a function as well. And this is called flash fill. So again, flash fill is a really nice tool. It allows us to do things like what we would otherwise use concat or concatenate or text join or text split or text to columns. So it's a combination of all of those different text tools that we can use. In this case, what I want to do, I just want to go ahead and focus on column D, column G, column I, and column J. And basically what I want to do first, I want to go ahead and combine the rep first name into one cell. So to do that, I'll go ahead and click on the Data tab, and Flash Fill is on the Data tab. Over in the Data Tools command group, here is Flash Fill. A little lightning bolt going through a table. That is Flash Fill. If you hover over it, it tells you automatically fill in values, enter a couple of examples you want, and Excel will fill it in for you. We can also press Ctrl+E. But let's go ahead and watch it work. We don't necessarily have to click on it. Let's go ahead and enter the rep full name in column D. So I'll go ahead and type, I'll just say Kara Olson, and I'll press the Enter key. Now, I don't feel like typing everyone's name here. So let's see if Excel will pick up on the pattern for me. So I'll go ahead and start typing here for Anthony. And notice as I'm typing Anthony's name here, it's automatically recognizing the pattern, right? That I want the full string value that's in column B, add a space, and add the full string value that's in column C. Here's a preview of what it would look like. So yes, I do want that. So to accept that, I'll press the Enter key. I can always test to make sure it's working fine. I'll press the Enter key, and here we go. So if I go all the way to the bottom, I'll check that last one here. Here's Jerry Rivera, and so pretty good. So that works well. As soon as you run Flash Fill, we get a little Flash Fill options here. You can do some basic things like undo the Flash Fill if it did not pick up on the pattern properly. Or I can go ahead and accept the suggestions. I can also go ahead and select all 41 changed cells. I'll just accept these suggestions here. Did a pretty good job. So basically Flash Fill looks to the left, senses a pattern, and then it offers to complete that pattern for you. Now you'll be surprised to see what types of patterns Flash Fill can actually pick up on. Well, let's head on over here. Let's see if we can extract the actual month from our date here, right? So the month here is January. So I'll go ahead and type January. And let's run Flash Fill this time. So I'll click on the Flash Fill icon here, and let's see what happens. And look at that. So it's extracting the month from this particular date for me. Right. Now, this only works because we're using this type of date format. If we just had a short date with the numbers in here, that would not extract the actual month for us. Right. So that works well. I'll go ahead and accept those suggestions. Okay, now what about this one? In column I want to extract the city here. So the city is Boulder. So I'll type Boulder. The next city is Salem. So as soon as I start typing Salem, I can see it's offering Flash Fill for me. I'll go ahead and press Enter, and I'm good to go. I'll just quickly take a look. Sometimes when you run Flash Fill, it doesn't get the pattern right away. Very rarely will that happen. If you have a more complex pattern, right? Basically, Flash Fill will tell you, I did not find the pattern for you. Go ahead and enter a few more examples until I can figure it out, and I'll offer you the suggestion there as well. One thing to note, sometimes this will happen. Sometimes instead of bowling green, we'll just get bowling in here, right? So sometimes it will omit the second word. What's cool with Flash Fill, if we see that error, if we update the cell to show bowling green, it's going to go ahead and update all of the other cells here that has, cities with two names. So you can train it even after you enter Flash Fill, which is pretty cool. Okay, let's do one more. Let's go ahead and enter CO for Colorado. This time I'll use the shortcut, so Control E. So you do have to click on the next blank cell to run Flash Fill. I'll press Control E. Mission accomplished. There we go. I'll go ahead and accept the suggestions here, and I'm good to go. So that is Flash Fill. Really nice tool to improve your data set. In this case, we were able to have the rep's name in a full column here. We're able to extract the city and the state. So now we can run reports based on city and state. We also extracted the month. Didn't need to do that because we have the timeline for the pivot table as well. But if we're using another type of tool, we can extract the month here as long as we're using the full format here, the actual spelling of the month for the date format. So go ahead and play around with flash fill. Go ahead and throw flash fill at some other data sets that you may have, and we'll wrap up here with this worksheet. Welcome to Module 2. Now in this module, this is what we'll be covering. We'll be taking a look at array functions. We'll also take a look at advanced conditional formatting. We'll take a look at advanced charts. Sometimes maybe we just have too many fields in our data set, and trying to get the chart to look exactly how we want it to display the data can be a challenge. So we'll take a look at advanced charts or combo charts. And then we'll have some fun creating macros that can automate and repeat tasks for us in Excel. Go ahead and open up the practice file for Module 2, and let's dive in. Let's take a look at some array formulas. Now we just have a small data set over here to the left, our little fictitious company payroll information, first name, last name, employee number, hours, hourly rate. We're missing the gross pay. Well, let's take a look and see how arrays work. We may have heard range, cell, array. Well, how does an array actually work? Well, let's take a look. We're going to go ahead and use the array capability to return what's currently being displayed in an array. So for example, we can link to a cell. So what if I wanted to link cell I5 to whatever is in cell B5? Well, I can do that. To do that, I'll click on my cell here and I'll say, I want this cell to be equal to whatever is in cell B5. So it's simple equals B5. If I press enter, it displays the value that is in B5. If I change the value in B5 to Davis, it's dynamically linked. So it automatically changes to Davis. I'll go ahead and put this back to Jones. So that's linking to a cell. Well, what else can we link to? Can we link to a row range? Well, let's see. I'll go ahead and click here on cell K5 and I'll say equal, and I'll highlight the last name and the employee number. So equals B5 to C5. Well, let's see how that works. If I press the enter key, notice what it does. It actually places the last name in one column and the employee number into another column. So interesting. Well, what about linking to a range in a column, right? So what if I wanted to go ahead and link, let's say, create a link for the first name. So I'll go ahead and say equal, and I'll highlight all of my first names here from Sarah down to Robert. So it's equals A5 to A19. If I press enter, I can see it returns that array for me. Now what's interesting, if you take a look at the formula bar here, you'll notice that the formula is grayed out. So it says equals A5 to A19, but it's grayed out. If I click on the top one here, we can see that this one is accessible. So when you're working with arrays, it's that first cell that allows you to change the data that's being displayed in the array as well. Well, notice we have a kind of a blue box around here indicating that we have inserted a dynamic function. So we get this blue indication here. Also, we have that same blue for the linking to a row range. So this is just to kind of see what we can do, how Excel links ranges when we enter those formulas. Well, let's do something a little different here. Let's go ahead and use the ampersand to link to two arrays. So what if I want to go ahead and link or combine the last name and the employee number into one? Well, the ampersand on our keyboard is an actual operator. So for example, if I said equal this last name here and the employee number, so equals B10 and C10, it basically concatenates that for me as well. Now we just want to go ahead and do it on a bigger level. Instead of doing one cell to one. We want to do multiple, right? So 15 rows, 2 columns. So let's see. I'll click on P5 and I'll type the equal sign here. I'll highlight all of my last names. So it's equal to B5 to B19, and I'll go ahead and grab all the employee numbers. I know, looks like a really weird formula, right? So B5 to B19 and C5 to C19. Let's see what the output is going to look like over here, right? So I'll go ahead and press enter. And look what it does. So it concatenates the entire array for me, right? So now we have pairs, last name employee number as well. We'll see how this will come into play when we are trying to return multiple values based on multiple input using XLOOKUP. Let's go ahead and multiply these columns here. So if I want to go ahead and multiply the hourly rate, well, let's see what happens. I can just say equals 35.5 times 30. And I can do that. Then I can autofill down. That gives me my answer. So that works. But let's see if we can save a few steps here. We'll go ahead and click here. And now I'll just say equal all of my hours. And I'll multiply that by all of my hourly rates. So it's D5 to D19 multiplied by E5 to E19. Let's see what happens here. And look at that. So it does the same thing, but this is an array. So these are just some of the different things that we can do. We just want to be able to practice linking cells and ranges and arrays so we can see how this can benefit us here as well. So go ahead and perform these tasks, link to a cell, link to a row range, link to a range in a column. Use the ampersand to concatenate 2 arrays and come right back. What does arrays have to do with XLOOKUP? Well, let's take a look at our course offering here. We have several applications. We have Excel, Word, Outlook, Power Query, Power BI, and Power Pivot. But they all have different levels. So we can choose Excel Introduction, Intermediate, and Advanced. Likewise, Word, Introduction, Intermediate, and Advanced. Outlook, we only have Introduction and Advanced. We have lengths. We have unique prices based on the actual application and the level. So if you were to create an XLOOKUP kiosk here, so what if we wanted to create a little kiosk so that our students can look up the price for a particular course? You want to look up the price for Excel Intermediate. So I'll enter my XLOOKUP function here to get the output price. So I'll click on my Formulas tab. I'll go ahead and click on Insert Function. Here's my XLOOKUP. So what is my lookup value? So already I'm stuck here because my lookup value cannot just be Excel. It needs to be Excel and Excel Intermediate. I don't have lookup value 2 here. I only have lookup value. So how can I express that I want to look up pairs? So I want this course, Excel and Intermediate, which is $250. So how can I do that? Well, the keyword is and remember we learned on the Array Formulas tab here that our ampersand is an operator. So what if I do this? What if for the lookup value, I'll click on B9, which is Excel, and Intermediate. So now what I've done is I've created a lookup value that's called Excel Intermediate. So this is concatenated into one here. So the next part of XLOOKUP, we need to, for the lookup arrays, where can we find this Excel Intermediate combination? Well, for the lookup array, I can't just, highlight the application because it just says Excel, 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 Word, Word. I need to be able to say Excel Intermediate. So what I'm going to do is I'll say, well, my lookup array is going to be D2 to D15 and the course level. So the application and the level. Now let's see if this makes sense. So my lookup value is B9 and B10, which is Excel Intermediate. And my lookup array, I'm looking for a match for Excel Intermediate. Well, take a look at the preview here. Look at my first pair, Excel Introduction, which is right here. Look at my second pair, Excel Intermediate, which is right here. Well, this matches my input or my lookup value. So that should work for me. The last thing I'll do is just, I want to return the price. So I'll highlight all of my prices here. And look at that. It's already giving me my price. It's telling me that the Excel Intermediate course is $250. And that is correct because here is Excel Intermediate. It is indeed $250. So what we need to do is combine the input names using the ampersand. We also need to combine the column names using the ampersand. So in this case, application and level. And so the Excel is just storing that array for us so that we can use it over and over and over again in our XLOOKUP function. So if I click OK here, right? So again, it's already locked onto the arrays. The arrays are here. We can't see them, but Excel has stored them for us. So now if I change this to, let's say, Word Intermediate, it updates right away. Word Intermediate is $200. What about Word Advanced? $300. There's several other ways to do this, but in my opinion, this is the most efficient way to look up multiple values and return a particular value while using XLOOKUP. Let's take a look at some really cool array functions. So we have a list of stored names here. We have 15 to be exact, but they're not unique. You can see we have Safeway appears a few times, Whole Foods appears a few times, and so forth and so on. So what if we just wanted a unique list of these stored names? This would be very helpful because if we had 500 rows of data, it would be nice if we can just go ahead and get a unique list. Right? So one of the ways that we can do that is by using a function that was introduced in 2020. We'll take a look at the unique function as an array function. So the unique function, I'll go ahead and just insert it right here into the cell. So create a separate unique list from my list of 15 stores here. I'll click on cell C4. I'll type the equal sign. I'll introduce the unique. So it returns the unique values from a range or array. I'll press tab to activate it. And I simply just need to go ahead and highlight all of them. I'll go ahead and close my parentheses. Right. These others are default. So it's going to go ahead and by default, it's going to sort A to Z. If we want to sort it in another direction, we can enter some more parameters here. Right. So here are, if we want to, so it's actually sorting by column by default, and it's also going to sort A to Z. So if we want to change these parameters, we can change them here as well. In this case, we're just sorting exactly as is. Unique list from A4 to A18. If I press enter, so I can see here that even though I have 15 stores entered, I only have 8 unique stores here as well. So that is the unique function. So pretty cool. Now, what about the sort? So here's another sort, another array function. This is the sort function. So I can sort this unique list by using the sort function. Now again, this is a function of the sort tool. So this is pretty cool. So we'll notice we have a lot of array functions now that accompany an actual tool. So here's the sort tool. So I'll use sort. I'll go ahead and press tab. Now we can see we have several arguments here. So we have the array, we have the sort index, we have the sort order, and we have by column. Well, in this case, I just want to go ahead and sort this particular list A to Z. So I'll go ahead and highlight them. I'll close my parentheses and I'll press enter. And there you go. So it actually sorts the list for me in alphabetical order. If you want to take a look at more advanced features or more arguments, if you click on that cell that has the actual function in here, just click on the FX to the left here. That will pull up the function arguments box and we can take a look at it. We can see that we have some other options in here. So for example, only the array is necessary. The sort index, the sort order, and sort by column, these are optional, but it's a number indicating the row or column to sort by. So if we had several columns in here as well, we would need to specify the number of the column based on the position of the first column here. And then the sort order, right? So 1 is for ascending, -1 is for descending. And if we want to sort by row, so by default it's sorting by column. If we want to sort by row, we can change that here as well. But in this case, it's working fine for me. Now, what I can do as well, I can go ahead and accomplish both of these with just one statement. So what if I wanted to go ahead and sort this list? So make it unique and sort it as well. So I can eliminate these two steps. I can perform them with just one step here. So I'll do the sort function first. So go ahead and sort. I'll press the tab key here. I want to sort the unique version of this list. So I'm sorting the unique version of A4 to A18. Just make sure I have enough closing parentheses here. So sort the unique result of my store names here. If I press enter, I get the same list as here as well. So we can nest array functions, which is pretty cool as well. So a really nice option here to use. Here's another one, it's rand array. So rand array is just we can generate a list of numbers or values or dates that we can use for further analysis. Well, what if I wanted to generate some numbers here? I'll use rand array. And for this one, I'll use all of the arguments. Here's the rand array function. So it just returns an array of random numbers. I'll press the tab key. I need to specify how many rows I want, how many columns I want, what is the smallest number, what is the highest number, and do I want a decimal or a whole number? Well, give me 10 rows and give me 3 columns. The smallest number is going to be 100. Highest number is going to be 399. And if I press comma again here, I do want decimals, so I'll choose false here. I'll close my parentheses and press enter. And here's my random list of numbers that can be generated. So it's a really nice function when you just want to test something. Maybe you're testing a particular formula to make sure it's calculating things correctly. Or maybe you're just playing around and you need some numbers to actually run some simulations on as well. So pretty cool. One thing to note though, after you create the random array, things will move around. The numbers will change. If I type a number next to it and press the enter key, so it's volatile. So they all kind of change here as well. What you can do is just right click, copy those numbers, and I'll just paste the values if you want to work exclusively with those values as well. So those are some of the array functions. Go ahead and check them out and come right back. Let's take a look at 3 examples of how we can use advanced conditional formatting. We're going to go ahead and use an input cell to display what the values on our table here. We'll also create another conditional formatting rule that will highlight the entire row based on a condition. And then we'll create our third rule, which will highlight the rows as long as the wine color is white. So we have the transaction number, we have representatives, we have states, we have the date in here as well. We have the type of wine, the group, the part, the sales, the margin, and the quantity as well. Now, conditional formatting is a really nice way to filter your data to give you some visuals on your data set. So for example, if I were to highlight all of my sales here, and let me go back to the top here. So we have quite a few. So if I were to highlight all of my 305 cells there, under the Home tab, conditional formatting has a lot of really nice visuals that are built in that will help me to kind of just quickly visualize my data, get some insights. We have top and bottom rules. Well, what if I want to just display all of my sales that are over a certain amount? So I'll say greater than. Right? So highlight all of my cells with a light red fill with dark text that are over, let's say, 150. As you can see in real time, as long as it's over 150, it's being displayed here as well. But I don't feel like coming back and clicking on conditional formatting and changing that number. So what I can do, because I have this little up arrow here, this reminds me that I can refer to a cell reference. So this cell is going to be my little input. This will control the conditional formatting that's being displayed on my little pear wine distribution here. So I'll delete that 150. And I'll go ahead and click on this cell. Right. The cell currently has 200 in there. So it's equal to L4. I'll go ahead and click OK. And there we go. So now if I change this number, so if I change my mind, only 150, more than 150. Look at that. In real time, it's showing me all of the information here as well. So that's one way that we can just kind of use conditional formatting to our advantage. We can use a cell to control what's being displayed here as well. Okay, now what if we wanted to do something else? Notice right now it's only highlighting one cell, right? It's only highlighting one cell. What if we wanted to highlight the entire row? So as long as that particular, in this case, H5, as long as it's greater than or equal to 150, go ahead and highlight it here. Well, we have to create a rule for that. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight, because we want to highlight the entire row, we need to select all of our records. So I'll go ahead and select all of my records first. And I'll click on conditional formatting. Now I don't have a rule that's built in for that, so I need to go ahead and create a new rule. So I'll click on new rule. And the rule that I want to use is, I'm concerned about the value that is in cell H4. So as long as the value that's in H4 is greater than or equal to 150, I want to go ahead and highlight the entire row. So there's a lot here. Here's the world of conditional formatting. Well, what I want to do is use a formula to determine which cells to format. So on the bottom, I'll go ahead and click on cell H4, which is my first one here. And I'll say, is that greater than or equal to 150? If it's greater than or equal to 150, I'll go with a light blue fill color here. Now, the only thing we have to change is we have to change this. Right now, it's locked onto H4. Well, if you take a look over here to the right, you'll see I have written the formula for you that we need to enter. Notice we're absolute referencing the column, but not the actual row, right? So we're locking onto column H, but we're allowing Excel to evaluate each row here as well. So to do that, we'll remove the $sign before the 4. And here's our simple formula, equals $H4, is it greater than or equal to 150? I'll go ahead and we can actually even copy and paste that in there, but I'll press OK and let's see if this works. So here we go. So as long as it is 150, it's greater than or equal to 150, it's highlighting the entire record for us, which is pretty cool, right? Let's try one more. This time we'll use this formula to go ahead and check to highlight the entire record based on the color of the wine. I'm going to go ahead and delete this conditional formatting though. So I'll click on clear rules. I'll clear rules from the entire sheet. I can also go to manage rules for the entire worksheet, and I can see the formulas here that we can use, right? So I can go ahead and delete them. I'll go ahead and press apply, and I'll press OK. I'll do the same thing as before. I'll go ahead and highlight all of my data. And this time, we'll do a combination of both. We want to create a new rule based on a formula. This formula has two parts. We're going to use cell L11 as the input. So we can type either red or white in here, and that will highlight the entire row for us. So we're just going to use this formula, right? So I'm going to go ahead and evaluate E4, which is our first type of wine. And I'll say, is that equal to L11? Now, just like before, we don't want to absolute reference the row here. So I'll remove the $ before the 4. This should be L12, not L11. For the format, I want it to be a light blue color as well. And I'll go ahead and press OK. And let's see if this works here. Let's just make sure that this is L12. Let's press OK. And there we go. So this should be L12. So now if I change this to red, let's see what happens. So look at that. So now it's highlighting all of my reds for me. So really, 3 really nice uses of conditional formatting. The formulas are here for you. Go ahead and plug those in and come right back. Let's take a look at charts here. So if you've ever inserted an Excel chart, we know that we have what's called recommended charts. And depending on how we have our data situated, we may or may not run into some issues when we are actually inserting a chart. Now, I just want to go ahead and create a quick chart. This is a really nice data set to create a chart from. So if I press Alt F1 on my keyboard, that gives me the default clustered column chart here that I can work with. And as you can see, it's working really well. We can see all of the data. Everything is in good proportion, and we are good to go. Really, this works well because we just have one scale for our sales. But the problem happens when we have another scale, maybe for the total or maybe for the units. So we can see our sales here, they go up to, from 0 to 1600 on the vertical axis here as well. But what if we wanted to express some other values that were on the range of, let's say, 0 to 500? It will be a little difficult. We'll maybe need to do something special, and that's called a combo chart. So let's take a look at our next example, and we'll insert a combo chart. Let's head on over to combo charts. So here's an example. So in this case, we have the month, we have the units sold, we have the sale, and we have the profit. So we already can see that we'll have some issues because our units sold, they range from, looks like about 45 up to about 220. So we'll have let's say 145 to 220. And then we have our sale, which ranges from 855 to about 4,000. So we can see we'll have a different type of scale for our sale. And then for our profit, right? Our profit is larger than the units sold, but not as high as the actual sale. So I'm going to have some issues here trying to represent these values. So let's see what happens. Let's see what happens if I insert just the default chart here. So I'll press Alt plus F1 on my keyboard. And let's see what it gives me. Okay, so let's see. So it gives me this chart here. I'll make this a little bigger, see if we can see it. So the chart that it gave me, it's a clustered column chart as well. So here's the cluster for January. The blue represents our units sold, 130. The orange represents our sale, which is 2,470. And then the gray represents our profit, which is 500. So we can see right away that we can pretty much make out our sales here. We can see them. We can clearly read the values based on our axis over here as well. However, for our profit, we can probably make it out. We can see this is close to 500 here. So we can probably make them out, but it's still just a very small portion of our chart, right? From 0 to 1,000. And then if we take a look at our actually units sold, that's where the real problem comes in. There's no way of me really knowing. This is too small a scale to determine if this is 100 or so forth and so on. So what can we do? Well, what we need to do is to convert this to a combo chart. I'll click on my chart here. Here are my two friends, the chart design and the chart and the format tab. I'll click on the chart design and I want to go ahead and change the chart type. So I'll change the chart type and I'll pull up the combo chart. That will give me the opportunity to kind of customize the chart to display what I want to. I'll have a nice preview before I actually close it as well. There we go. I'll click on change chart type. Now I can take a look at different charts here. None of them are really working well. On the very bottom, I'll click on combo chart. So when I click on combo chart, we can see kind of did something here. It's showing my profit as a line, but that still doesn't help me. So maybe what I want to do is maybe I want to show my sale on a secondary axis. So I'll click here. So now I have two axes, right? On the left, this pertains to my units sold and my profit. Over here to the right, this pertains to my actual sale. So right now, this is working pretty well. I can read my sale, I can read my profit, but my units sold are kind of getting lost here. So maybe what I'll do is I'll change that to, this is a clustered column. Maybe I'll go ahead and change this to a line. Okay, so that's what that looks like. But still don't like the way that it looks, right? If I press OK, this is what it looks like here. So I'll just keep chugging away. I'll click on change chart type again. I'll go back to combo and maybe I'll express my sale as a line and everything else will be a clustered column. So I'll just keep playing around until I get the combination that works well for me. So I think I'll settle for this. I have the units sold as a clustered column, the profit as a clustered column, the sale is a stacked line on the secondary axis. So let's press OK and let's see what that looks like. So it's a lot better. But if I take a look here on, this goes from 0 to 1200. I don't necessarily need for it to go that high because we only go up, the profit goes up to about 980. So I'll double click here, open the pane over here on the right side, and I'll go ahead and change the maximum to 1000 instead. So that goes to 1000 for my profit. This makes it a little easier, at least for me to see my units sold. Right. So depending on how you feel comfortable, we can use the combo chart to kind of move things around. And we can take a look at the advanced formatting options here as well to just kind of change the ranges for our data. So go ahead and insert your recommended chart. Go ahead and change your chart type to a combo chart. Go ahead and move things around until you get the look and feel that you want for your chart as well. Let's go ahead and record some macros. Now, what exactly is a macro? Well, a macro is a tool that Excel uses to record user actions and or commands. Now, an action could be something like clicking on a cell, right? Or using the arrow keys to move around. So these are different actions here as well. You can also press enter. You can press tab. Something like entering text in a cell. And a command is something like making it bold, giving it a color, changing the font type, increasing the font size, or maybe even applying some type of cell style to it as well. So these are all examples of actions and or commands. Well, you may find yourself doing the same thing over and over in Excel. And in that case, you want to be able to create a macro. Now, everything that we do, Excel will record those actions and those commands, and it will basically replay those actions and commands in sequence. So we need to make sure that we're actually thinking about the sequence to make sure everything happens accordingly. Well, the first thing we want to do, let's go ahead and turn on our developer tab. Now to do that, we need to get to the Excel options window here, and we just need to go ahead and turn it on. It's already here. We just need to go ahead and turn that on. So I'll go ahead and head on over to, I'll actually right click on my home tab, and I'll click on the customize the ribbon option here. And as you can see, I'm already here. I just need to go ahead and turn on the developer tab over here on the right side. I'll go ahead and turn that on. So again, just make sure that we're on the Excel options. Head on over to customize the ribbon. And over here on the far right, we can see all of our tabs. Let's go ahead and turn on the developer tab and press OK. So I'll go ahead and turn that on. I'll press OK. Here's my developer tab. I'll go ahead and click on it here. So we can see we have a lot of the tools that we need in the developer tab. We'll focus on the code command group where we want to go ahead and record a macro. We can view our macro library. We can also go ahead and open up the Visual Basic editor to take a look at the code and maybe even edit the code as well. We can also do something like insert a button from the controls command group to run our actual macro. Now, to get an understanding of how our macro works, I'll do something simple here. I'll just go ahead and type some text in here. So if I go back to the home tab and in the cell styles, so these really are some form of macros because these are all pre-programmed with a certain font type, color, effect, and shade as well, depending on what we use here. So if I were to click on this, I can see right now we have the Arial 10 and it has a black text, no shade. Look what happens when I click on one of these accents. I'll go ahead and apply the accent 1. Now if I click back on it, we can see it's changed to Calibri size 11. We can see that the color is white and we have a fill color on the background as well. So those 4 or 5 commands were pre-programmed in here, and that is a form of a macro. So it saves us some steps. We don't have to change the font to Arial, change the size to 11, change the font color to white, change the fill color to that version of blue there as well. So go ahead and turn on your developer tab and come back and we'll start creating a few macros. Now we'll go ahead and keep it simple. We're going to create a simple macro. So in this case, we'll create 2 macros on this worksheet. The first one that we'll create is a macro that always places our signature in cell A1. So it's always going to place our signature right here. And this is what I want the signature to look like. It's just going to be my name, so Mo Jones, the name of my company. And then I always want today's date. So I'll use the today function. So I'll write equal today, open parentheses, close parentheses. So that's what it will look like. I'll go ahead and press enter. So this way always adds my name, my company, and the current date. Right? So I always want this to run in cell A1. So I'll go ahead and record a macro. Now when you're recording a macro, the macro always runs in the same position. Right? So it's always going to run in cell A1. when you're recording macros, it does use VBA, which is object oriented. So you first have to select your object before you run your macro. Now, objects can be things like, it can be a cell, or it could be a range of cells. It can be a table. It can be a chart. It can be a sheet, even a workbook. So we'll take a look at the Visual Basic editor in just a little bit, but there's a lot of different objects that we can use. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and select cell A1. That's where I want my macro to run. And I'll go ahead and click on Record Macro. Here's my Record Macro dialog box. And I just have a couple of things I need to do. I need to go ahead and give the macro a name. And that's it. These other ones here, these are optional. So I can go ahead and optionally give this a shortcut key. I can optionally provide a description as well. And we do need to decide where we want this macro to be stored, either in this workbook, which means we can only run this macro in this workbook. If you want to be able to run this every time you open Excel, we need to change this to the personal macro workbook. I have a lot of macros in my personal macro workbook. I'm just going to go ahead and save it to this workbook. So here's the name. Now, when you're naming a macro, you cannot have spaces. It needs to start with a letter. So I'll just call this signature 1, just all one word here. If I want to, I can go ahead and assign a shortcut key. For this first macro, we'll go ahead and assign a shortcut key. Now, we want to be careful here. When we're assigning a shortcut key, we want to use the Control-Shift variant. Right? So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and turn on my caps lock. Now that I have my caps lock turned on, if I simply type a letter in here, notice how it converts it to Control-Shift-S. Right? So that's what I can do. So again, just turn on your caps lock and type a letter in there. I'll use the letter S for this one. The other way you can do that is just hold down the Shift key and type S. That will convert it for you. Okay, I do want it to be stored in this workbook. And for the description, I'll just go ahead and add one here. So I'll just say basic signature, and I'm good to go. Now, once I press OK, it's going to start recording. So I just want to be very deliberate with how I create the signature. I'll go ahead and press OK. We're going to notice that the record macro icon here is going to change into a stop recording. So once we're finished, we can click on there to stop recording the macro. I'll go ahead and press OK. And now I'm recording. So it's just waiting for me to enter some input. Now I already have cell A1 selected, but just from experience, I'm going to go ahead and click on it anyway. And now I'll go ahead and start entering my data. So Mo Jones. I'll press enter, type the name of my company, and press enter. And I'll drop in the today function. Now notice as we're interacting in a cell, all of the commands are grayed out because right now we're kind of in between a task. So Excel is waiting for us to press the enter key or tab key to move away from the cell so that we can apply the actual command. I'll go ahead and press enter. You can also press Control Enter. So if you press Control Enter, you will basically complete the command, and this will give you the capability to add other commands as well. In this case though, I'll just go ahead and press the enter key and I'm done. I'll go ahead and stop recording. And so now I'm going to go ahead and remove this because I want to see my macro running here. I'll just click away from that cell. I'll go ahead and pull up my list of macros. We can also press Alt plus F8 to pull them up. And like I mentioned, I have a lot of macros in here. So here's my signature one that's in this workbook. So notice here, I can go ahead and run the macro, which is what we want to do. In a little bit, we're going to go ahead and step into the macro. And we'll also be able to edit the macro as well. We can also delete macros from here. Just going to go ahead and run it. Go ahead and keep your eye on cell A1 and you should see the macro running there. So I'll click run. And there we go. So we did not even see it happening in sequence, just kind of happened very, very quickly. Right? So every time I run that macro, it's always going to run in cell A1. So that is how the macro works. Well, I'm going to go ahead and create another one. What if I want to create a macro that places my signature based on my selected cell? Well, to do that, we'll need to use what's called relative referencing. But go ahead and create your macro, go ahead and run it, and come right back, and we'll create a second signature here, and we'll make a few more changes as well. Let's go ahead and create a macro that places our signature based on our cell selection. So it makes more sense for me to be able to sign off on a document based on my cursor location. Maybe I want to go ahead and scroll to the end of a particular document and then add my signature here as well. So to do that, I need to turn on relative references. So right here underneath my record macro button, I have use relative references. If you hover over it, kind of gives you a lot of information trying to explain how it works. The best way is just to, let's go ahead and record a relative reference macro and see how it works. I'll go ahead and toggle that on so I can see it's turned on now. I have a nice border around it and it's highlighted. So now I'll just go ahead and click on any cell. So whatever cell I click on, that's where the macro is going to run. I'll click over here. I'll click right here on cell F15 and I'll record the macro. I'll call this one signature 2. I'm not going to assign a shortcut key this time. I'll leave it stored in this workbook as well. And I'll call this one signature with flex, right? So I have the flexibility to run this signature wherever I want to. I'll go ahead and press OK, and I'll be good to go. Now I'm recording. I already have my cell selected, so I can just start typing in here. So I'll type my name. I'll press the enter key, and I'll put the name of my company. Now I do want to add the name of the company here. I'll press Control Enter because I also want to change or apply a cell style. So if I press Control Enter, notice how it places that text in there for me. But now I can perform additional commands before I move on to the next cell. So I'll go ahead and give it a quick cell style here. Give it that Learnit blue. Now that I'm done, I'll press Enter to go to the next line. And I'll go ahead and drop in the today function in here. And I'll go ahead and press Enter. And that's it. I'm done. I'll go ahead and go back to the Developer tab, and I'll click on Stop Recording. There's also a Stop Recording button down here on the status bar, but I'll click right here, and I'm good to go. Well, now it's time to go ahead and test out the macros. So I'll click on my macro library here, and let's see. Let's actually insert a new sheet. And let's run that macro. So I'll click on my list of macros here. Let's go ahead and run the first macro, signature 1. As you can see, it always runs in cell A1 based on the sheet that you're working on. Well, what if I want to go ahead and sign off on, I don't know, G15 here? I'll run my relative reference macro, signature 2. And as you can see, it applies the style. So it applies formatting. We can see it applies formulas as well, functions. So pretty cool. Now I did have a shortcut, so I'll press Control-Shift-S. Let me delete the content here from cell A1. So if I press Control-Shift-S, there I can go ahead and run that macro that way as well. So that's how we create a relative reference macro, right? We'll take a look at maybe some more uses of a relative reference macro. But for now, those are the two types of macros that we can create. Either an absolute reference macro, which is the default, and then we have relative reference macros as well. Go ahead and create your second macro and go ahead and just test it out and come right back. Now that we've created two macros, let's go ahead and step into the macro. I'm going to go ahead and click on my macros library here. And for that signature 1, I'm going to go ahead and step into the macro. So basically this will allow us to press the F8 key. It's going to open up the Visual Basic editor for us. And we can watch the macro run line by line. We can also see the code, which is a really good way to understand how VBA works. I'll go ahead and click on Step Into. And here is my VBA window. So here's the VBA interface. We can see it still kind of looks like the legacy Excel, from Excel 2003. We don't have a ribbon. We get the drop down options here. And there's a lot in here that we can use. Quick tour of this interface. We have our project pane over here on the left. So we can see that we have the actual workbook. Here's our workbook. Here are the sheets that make up this workbook as well. Now, when you create a macro, what Excel does, it inserts a module. And in that module is where we have our macros stored. So here's my first macro. So it says sub signature 1. So what that means is we're telling VBA, Visual Basics for application, in this case for Excel, create a subroutine or a sub-procedure called signature 1. We go down to the next line here, we see some green text. So these are actual comments. So as long as they're followed by an apostrophe, these are just comments, right? And so the code editor ignores any comments. So this is just a nice way if you have really long, maybe 100 lines of code, adding comments is a really nice way to just kind of help you to understand what's going on. So I'll actually add a comment here. So I'll say the first thing that we're going to do, the very first line of code, it says range A1.select. Well, this is the way that we say to select cell A1. So I'll just say select cell A1. So range A1.select, I'll go ahead and press the F8 key. Notice how it jumps to that line. And we can see that cell A1 has now been selected. The next line, it says whatever the active cell is, which is basically cell A1, formula R1C1 equals Mo Jones. So this formula R1C1 is just the legacy way of saying value. So I can say, so whatever the active cell, change the value to Mo Jones. Now, if I wanted to change this, I could as well. If I just wanted to put my initials in here, I can do that. So I'll just say MJ. I'll go ahead and press the F8 key. And we can see it places MJ in there. The next one, we're going to go ahead and select cell A2. Same thing. Formula R1C1 equals Learnit. I'll put the exclamation point at the end here. I'll press F8. So as you can see, when we're stepping into the code, we can actually edit the code as well. And it's probably a really nice way to kind of check your code anyway. You can watch it run line by line, and that way you can catch any corrections that you need to make here as well. Okay, so as you can see, it's the same thing. We select our object, cell A1, and then we perform some type of either method or change a value to that particular object as well. So finally, cell A3, we're going to apply the today function in there. And then we selected cell A4. We actually did not need to select cell A4. So I can actually delete this last line here. We didn't need to select an empty cell, and we're good to go. So that is how that works. I'm going to go ahead and click on another cell here. Let's take a look to see how the other macro runs, the relative reference macro. So for this one, same thing. Create a subroutine or a sub-procedure called signature 2. Now notice the difference with the first line. We can see the difference between the two here. So for our first macro, it is explicitly selecting cell A1. For our relative reference macro, it's based on what you have selected. So we're not saying, select a particular cell. Whatever cell we have, we're going to go ahead and put Mo Jones in there. So that's the difference between the two. I'll go ahead and press the F8 key. There we have Mo Jones. And now it's a little different. This is a relative reference macro, so it's recording the movement, right? So we're going down. It says it's using the offset function here. So we're going down one row, but we're staying in the same column, right? And then we're going to go ahead and add Learnit in there. And then we apply the accent 1 style. I can change this. Maybe I'll go with accent 3. See what accent 3 gives me. All right, so that light gray there. And then we go down again, drop in the today function, and then we go back down again, and then we end the routine here. So this is VBA. This is how it works. You select your object, you apply some type of method to it, or you change a property or a value, as we can see here as well. So that is being able to step into the macro and the interface. If you click on that last worksheet tab here, I just have some tidbits here regarding VBA, just in terms of the syntax, right? So in this case, if we wanted to change the interior color of a particular cell, it's going to be active cell is the object. We're going to change the interior color property to VB yellow as well. Right? Here's some more screenshots of the VBA interface. And I even have some pieces of code here that you can try out in the immediate window. Go ahead and step into your macro, take a look at the code, and come right back. Now that we've seen what macros can do, let's take a look at a really nice example of what we can do with a macro. So here's a worksheet that I receive pretty often here, and I find myself making the same adjustments to this worksheet every time I get it. Because right now we can see this has a lot of issues. We can see we're missing the prices here for the price columns. We can see some of our text is aligned to the left, some is aligned to the right, some are centered. We can see some of the text is actually cut off because the column is not wide enough. And we're just missing styles in here. So I want to go ahead and write down a list of things that I want to do. So for example, for cell A1, I want to go ahead and give that the title style. Right? For cell A3, maybe I'll go ahead and give that a heading 3. So it's going to be a lot of styles here. Right? And next thing I want to do for my prices, I want to go ahead and give those the currency format. So when you have a lot of steps, it's a good idea to kind of write them down to make sure you kind of perform them in sequence here as well. So I'm good to go with that. The next thing I'll do is for all of my headers, I'll go ahead and give that the accent 1 style, or any accent that we want here as well. And then for my entire list, I want to go ahead and center align all. And then finally, for my entire document, I want to auto fit the columns. So those are the steps that I want to take here. But the main thing is that I want to make sure that I'm using absolute reference. Okay, so here we go. So I'll go ahead and turn off relative reference because we want absolute ref. I'll go ahead and click on cell A1 here, and I'll go ahead and record my macro, and I'll just call this cleanup. Maybe I'll go ahead and assign a shortcut key. So it's going to be Control-Shift-C. For my description, I'll just say cleanup messy sheet. Right. I already have cell A1 selected. I'll go ahead and press OK, and I'll just follow my prompt here. Okay, so for cell A1, I'll go ahead and click on the Home tab, and I'll apply the title style to that. So here's the title. For cell A3, I'll give this the heading 1, or heading 3 rather. And then for my prices, I'll go ahead and highlight my prices here, and I'll give that the currency format. I'll go ahead and grab my other price column, give that the currency format as well. I could have held on the Control key and highlighted both ranges and just applied the currency to them as well. So macros will understand commands like that. Also shortcuts. So if you use shortcuts while recording a macro, those will be registered as well. Okay, so the next thing, I want to go ahead and grab all of my headers and give those the accent 1 style. And now we can see it's starting to make a little sense here. I'll go ahead and center align my entire list. So I'll go ahead and highlight my entire list like that. I could have also pressed Control A to select all of the items on my list. That will work as well. So I'll go ahead and center align everything. And it's starting to look pretty good. Last thing I'll do, I'll click on the All command here to the left of column A, top of row 1. And I'll click on the Format tab and I'll use the Auto Fit Column Width command. And there we go. I'll go ahead and stop recording. That looks pretty good. Everything is nice and neat, according to my liking at least. And there we go. Great. Now let's go ahead and test it on Macro Cleanup 2, and let's see if that works for me. So I'll click here, and I can use the shortcut that I created. So Control-Shift-C, and look at that. It converted or cleaned up this messy worksheet with just one command here as well. So pretty cool. One thing to note, you cannot undo a macro. Okay, cannot undo a macro. So if I press Control Z, nothing happens. So before you run a macro, make sure that you absolutely want to run the macro because you cannot undo it. So pretty nice macro here that we can run. I do have some other ones on here. So here is a macro sort. I already have the steps filled out here. So go ahead and create two macros, one that will sort by division and one that will sort by division, then by department. Last thing we'll do with these macros, I'm going to go ahead and go back to macro setup here. And I want to insert a button that I can use to run my relative signature macro. So to do that, on the developer tab, right over here in the controls command group, we have the insert command here. So I'll go ahead and insert it's really a form control. So I'll click on insert here. And that very first one is a button. I'll go ahead and click on the button here and I'll put it right here. You can draw it wherever you want to. You can make it as big as you want to. I'll just put it right here. As soon as I let it go, it asks me which one of my macros do I want to assign to this button. Well, I want it to be that signature 2. I'll go ahead and press OK. And here it is. So now I can just go ahead and change the text. So I'll say click to sign. Once I click away from it, the button is now active. If I try to come back, I see the little pointer here. If you want to make any changes to that button, you can right click on it and you can click on edit text. So now you can change the text. You can also move the macro around if you want to, or even resize it. So now you can move it as well. All right. Let's test it out. I'll go ahead and sign off down here and right here. Click to sign, and there you go. So I did edit the macro. I changed the style. That's why it looks a little different. But now I can just click a button and run my macros here as well. So pretty cool. You can also add macros to your quick access toolbar. So if I click on my quick access toolbar here, let me show that below the ribbon. If I click here and I say more commands, here's the quick access toolbar. And now what I want to do, currently I don't have anything on my quick access toolbar. I want to go ahead and add my macros. So I click on this drop down and I'll change that to macros. And here are my macros. As you can see, I have a lot here. Here's my cleanup macro. I'll go ahead and add that to the quick access toolbar. And here are my 2 signature macros. I'll add those as well. Right. And I'll go ahead and press OK. So here they are. So if I wanted to run my signature 2, I can click here and run my signature there as well. So just different ways that we can run macros from the macro library, by using a shortcut, by assigning it to a button, or by adding it to your quick access toolbar as well. Congratulations on completing the course. Just as a recap, we're able to use conditional functions to return values from a data set. We're able to use XLOOKUP to return fields from a particular record based on a particular ID. We're also able to take a look at some text functions as well, really with flash fill. And we took a look at some advanced pivot tables as well. We were able to play around with some array functions. We're also able to create some advanced conditional formatting by using formulas and highlighting entire rows. We're able to take a look at advanced charts, and we're able to create a few macros in developer mode, taking a look at the VBA interface there as well. So congrats on completing the course. I look forward to seeing all of you in a future Learnit course.